Welcome to the RAOB program's Advanced Export Module demonstration. Let's start by opening the File menu, then select the Export Sounding Data option. And by default, RAOB initially opens with the standard export mode, which is available to all using the RAOB basic program. This standard export mode is still available for backward compatibility. However, the new advanced export features and parameters are only being added to the optional Advanced Export module. We can access the advanced mode by using this transfer button. But first we'll see how to configure RAOB to automatically open with the advanced mode. To do this, we'll close this panel, then select the Options menu, then Program Options, and then the System Configuration tab. And here we'll select the advanced option for the export mode. Then close. And when we go to the File menu and select the Export Sounding Data option, we now see the Advanced Export Options panels. There are 4 tabs of options, and so we'll begin with the Export Options tab. The first section, for Processing Options, allows selection of one, all, or a selected range of soundings. Like the standard export mode, the advanced mode also exports in a spreadsheet or text file format. In here you can also specify the missing or null value. And if the spreadsheet option is selected, you can also specify whether data is separated by commas or tabs. On the right side of the panel, there are convenient options to quickly switch back to the standard export mode, and another option to move directly to the Program Options panel to change the export mode default option. Okay, let's move on to the next tab, Individual Parameters. On the left, you have a list of over 200 parameters that can be exported. And we'll select just a few for demonstration purposes. And now in the middle section, we see those selected parameters, and then you can use the up and down buttons to adjust the relative position of each parameter as desired. This section, called Export Details, specifies how each parameter is listed on the export file. First is the Data Labels column. This is the abbreviated text which will be used as the column label on the export file. The next 3 columns specify the units, mode, and decimal precision for each parameter. And the best part is they are all user configurable. So let's select a height-related parameter for demonstration. Then on the far right side of this panel, you now have access to the parameter editor. And at the top, you can edit the label. Next, you can change units from feet to meters. Then you can change the mode from AGL to MSL. And finally, you can alter the decimal precision as needed. And please remember that you need to use the Apply Changes button to lock in your edited changes. And notice that the total number of selected parameters is also listed at the bottom tally list. And another handy feature is the ability to search for available parameters. For example, let's enter the word water to see what's available to export. And now we have a drop-down panel which lists available water-related parameters. And you can close this drop panel with this Close Search List button. So let's try a quick export with this Export Now button and see what the output looks like. Here we see the individual columns of exported data with their parameter labels and values. Okay, now let's look at the next tab, the Sounding Elements section. And unlike the prior Parameters tab, which produces an export file of horizontally listed data items, this Elements section produces a vertically oriented listing of sounding values for each data level. For example, let's select the level number, then pressure, and the temperature elements. And note that you can also edit the export details for each of these elements. And the tally list at the bottom also reflects these additional 3 elements. Okay, now let's export this data and see what happens. And here we see at the top the same individual parameters like before, and now we also have the 3 added sounding elements listed for each of the sounding's data levels. And finally, we'll look at the last tab, Layer Data. And unlike the standard export mode, the advanced mode offers many more options. So let's try exporting one layer for structural icing, such as wing icing. The data will be labeled as ice, which can be edited, but we'll just leave it as it is for now. We'll skip the second column option for now and look at the Layer Editor section. Before deciding which layer intervals to use, let's take a quick look at the soundings icing analysis. And here we can see rime icing exists between the 2,000 to 4,000 meters layer. Okay, now let's look at the export's layer editor. Let's set the top at 4,000 meters and the base at 2,000 meters. And to minimize data columns, we'll just use an interval of 1,000 meters, which results in only 2 columns of output needed. Also note that you can change feet and meter units with this button, and change AGL and MSL mode with this button. Okay, now let's export this data and see what happens. And this time we find the layer data is appended to the end of the individual parameters data columns, with 2 columns of icing data. And let's now look at the second column options, which we skipped before. And now we'll turn on the Clear Rime Mixed option, which will specify the type of icing within the reported layer. And now notice that the number of columns has doubled, from 2 to 4 because of the extra second column data. And before exporting, also notice the below tally list now includes the additional 1 layer of exported data. Okay, now let's make this final export and see what happens. And here we see the extra second column of icing type data following each icing layer. Before closing, we'll see how the layer data values are determined for export. You can see the methodology used by clicking on this Data Values button. When clicked, it presents help information detailing how RAOB produces export values for each parameter type. Regardless of the parameter being exported, all output is numeric, and they all range from 0 through 7. For example, let's look at lightning. It's either a 0 for a no value or a 7 for a yes value. And now look at the cat or turbulence parameter. Its numeric values range from 0 through 7, representing null through extreme turbulence categories. And that completes the advanced export module demonstration. Thank you for watching.